Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is presented by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Well, it's beach season, shrimp season, farm stand season, and ice cream season, and so you know what that means. It's road trip season. I'm out on the road sharing good eats and drinks and introducing you to the people behind them. So if you're inspired to get out here too, but your vehicle is less than inspiring, please consider purchasing your next road trip ride from Townsend Automotive. Celebrating 49 years serving West Alabama, this company has been extending its reach so that you don't even have to be in the Tuscaloosa area to purchase a car from them. Nationwide vehicle delivery service is available for Southern Fork listeners, and it's something that makes buying just the right new or certified pre-owned vehicle even easier. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory, or, of course, if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Automotive always salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. Zachary and Hannah Welton started their great adventure together, working in Charleston, South Carolina's celebrated Husk kitchen, before they decided to settle on another coast, the Yucatán. Their time spent living and working in southern Mexico, specifically Hartwood in Tulum, solidified their love for wood-burning ovens, bright and bold flavors, and plenty of fresh produce. When they returned to the Lowcountry, they began wood-fired pizza pop-ups around Charleston and quickly garnered an intense cult following for their pizza and pastries made with locally sourced seasonal ingredients. They've kept the catering and pop-up side of the business, but also recently opened Weltons Tiny Bakeshop on Upper King Street, where their ethos continues, focusing on seasonality and thoughtful sourcing to create naturally leavened, European-influenced pastries and breads. Charleston's next culinary chapter is upon us, and Hannah and Zachary, two of this class establishing the city's current culinary personality, are only just beginning to show us what they can do. Welcome to the Southern Fork, you two.
Yeehaw, so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here too. We are sitting in Charleston, South Carolina. It is a warm day, and you've already been up for how many hours?
I think we're rocking 8 hours at this point.
Oh, that's nuts.
Yeah, what time is it?
Nice 3:15 alarm clock.
Is that an everyday thing?
It's a 4-day-a-week thing.
4-day-a-week.
But those days off, you still want to
It's
wake up at
hard.
that time.
It's like a swing shift.
Totally.
Yeah. So, most people your age, because I'm old, so I could say that. Most people your age are not like, yeah, that's what I want to do with my life, is completely ruin my nightlife because I have to go to bed at 9. So baking has to be an obsession for you.
Through and through.
When did it happen? When did you each know that this was more than just a hobby?
Good question. I feel like it sort of naturally progressed. I don't know, about 3 years ago. Like once we started getting like really into pizza, I guess the rest of baking was like a natural segue for me anyways.
Yeah.
I think Hannah had a little bit earlier of a fascination with it, but for myself, it was definitely pretty recent.
And for listeners, that's because specifically the dough.
Yeah.
Right? I think for those of us that eat pizza or people like me, like I'm like, I like all styles of pizza. I like all styles of bread, you know.
Totally.
It doesn't seem that there's much manipulation in that world until you get into it, right?
Yes.
It's a living, breathing organism, which is amazing.
It's fun. Keeps us on our toes for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about for you, Hannah?
I always had this underlying passion, but I never wanted to be the pastry chef or on the pastry line at any restaurant that I originally worked at my first 5 years in the restaurant industry. It was definitely a position. It was like, you're a woman, so you're going to work pastry. And I was very anti that. I was like, I want to be respected. I want to cook hot fish. I want to fry things. I want to grill things. I want to make cornbread in the oven, you know. And that was like, there's always this tiptoe line of using savory applications in baking form. So wanting to run a galette that was savory, at Husk, you know, or pimento cheese biscuits. We're close.
Yeah, you're sliding down that slope.
And then I hit it hard when we were in Mexico. And that's where I was really given some creative power to do and create with the most insane produce that I've ever worked with versus just out of my wheelhouse, I'll say, you know. Definitely transitioned in Mexico in terms of, you know, being responsible for creating ice creams and desserts that were shelf stable for it being 100% humidity and 100 degrees in the jungle of the Yucatán. And that is the most impossible task. Zachary and I, we both love a solid challenge. So that was the biggest challenge without having a working freezer, having essentially 2 outlets to use. Pâte à choux is not going to hold. Ice cream is not going to hold.
Right. And so pâte à choux is a dough that is 100% butter.
Yep.
I mean, it's butter and flour. Right.
Yeah.
And so when she says it's not going to hold, which means that the butter is going to liquefy in 100-degree heat.
1,000%.
And then it's just not going to hold together. It's just going to fall apart. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not like we had, you know, a nice oven that we could, you know, turn it to 350 and just bake some cookies. We were starting a wood fire and then letting that cool down and then baking cookies in a wood-fired oven. It was absolutely just unlike anything I had ever experienced. And I was like, I love this.
For both of you, seeing that a challenge is fun instead of something that is it's intimidating, but you want to tackle it. You want to get in there. That is a big contrast with something you just said offhand when you said, I want to be respected in the kitchen. I agree with you. I think that we have let pastries be secondary in the restaurants, the restaurant respect ratio.
Yeah.
You know, the executive chef who's, you know, standing there at Expo is going to get a lot more credit than that pastry chef. And instead of saying, why is that happening? What do you respect about this? Because you're coming at it from the outside in, but you've now taken all of it apart. And honestly, I would never know, that you came to baking that late. You're cooking some high level shit or high level stuff.
I mean, I definitely think that the respect has come from putting the hours in, no matter what you do in this world. It's if you are a dedicated human that spills positivity in the workplace and in your personal life, the respect will be waiting for you. And I feel like we've been able to achieve that.
Yeah, I think that anyone who finds themselves in the hospitality or food service industry is immediately seeking a challenge because it's not easy. And anybody who says it is easy is
doing the wrong thing.
Yes.
They're doing something wrong.
They're not trying hard enough. So it's just what motivates us a lot of the time is constantly trying to chase the perfect pizza dough or perfect bread dough, which is, I don't think I've ever had the perfect pizza or the perfect bread dough. So it's just, you're constantly chasing that. And I think that's a point of inspiration in itself.
Mm-hmm. Now, coming back from the Yucatán and being here in Charleston, you had to take that philosophy that you'd formed there and then bring it back here. And obviously working at Husk, you had that seasonality, you had that local focus, but how did that shift when returning back to the marketplace culture, the culinary culture here? How did that shift and become your ethos?
Totally. I'll say that when we, our days at Husk, it was a really incredible time when Marsh and Mill was, just getting on the ground really and doing the groundwork, and we were touching Aunt Mill's flour every day, and Celeste from Green Grocer was dropping off milk every week, and there was this beautiful relationship forming. And it's crazy that we left from Charleston for 3 years, and when we moved back, all of those same folks were still absolutely like changing the scene and growing their businesses and growing their, spreading the good word through the community with their product, seeing like Spade and Clover, back in 2016 versus today. And, we buy from them every week. It's a full circle moment for sure. And like, I'm so proud to still have those relationships. My 22-year-old line cook self, like, would jump for joy when Celeste would bring fresh milk in, and because we get to make ricotta with it. And I was like, this is so cool. And now seeing her at the farmer's market and having her candles and our business is like so special.
Yeah. I think for me, it was when we returned from, working in Mexico, we had a brief stint where we were at a restaurant group that literally had everything. I mean, a brand new kitchen with Rationale ovens and French flat tops and produce from wherever you wanted or whatever ingredient you wanted. So it was the stark contrast from what we were used to and far from, I think, where both of us wanted to be. So we found ourselves the polar opposite, and we knew that it wasn't it, and we wanted to find out what it was for us.
Now, I'd love for you to, Zach, specifically talk about beyond just the relationship of having the local, that pizza dough has to be made with domestic grains, and you're working with different levels of gluten, different humidity, different temps, and why is it worth it flavor-wise and craft-wise beyond the relationship? Because I think we all know how fun it is, that relationship, but I think it stops people sometimes when they go, why is yours so good and mine isn't? Besides your skill level.
I think I guess like take a tomato, for instance. Like if you go in your backyard and you have tomatoes growing, you pick a tomato off the plant and you eat it. If you go to the grocery store and pick up a tomato and eat it there, it's going to be completely different, right? So like, for instance, when we started, we were like, okay, we have to use Caputo flour, right? Because that's what all the best pizzerias use, right? And we were really wrong. Because if you think about it, like the wheat is grown here and then shipped over to Italy and then shipped back and then bagged up. So it's like there's so many different hands that it's going through. And then by the time it gets to you, it's, who knows how old it actually is. So I think just having products that are, closer to home, like not only makes sense, like sustainably for the world, but flavor. So I think that that combination of like trying to make the world a little bit better of a place is ultimately going to give you a better product.
And that's because we forget that flour is alive, right?
Yeah. I mean, it says right on the back, like, don't eat it raw, which I mean, I laugh at all the time because I love eating raw dough.
Yeah.
But it's a living thing. And, it says right on our bags from Anson Mills, like freeze or refrigerate. And it's because as soon as they mill it and it leaves their warehouse, it's slowly losing nutrition and flavor.
And
so
oils sometimes too,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what something, depending on the flour, it can
Totally.
really make it go rancid. But you're small doing this. How many staff members do you have?
we're growing a little bit, but in total right now, 7,
There's 8.
8.
Eight
Oh
of
yeah, we
us.
just had a new
Yeah.
hire start today,
Oh, great.
which is
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
It's not a great week to ask them to do this podcast, but it was the week that I had. Yeah, they have new hire, a James Beard leadership breakfast, and I mean all kinds of things and fab, but we made it work. So
Heck yeah, we did.
I never see you stressed. I'm just going to be real about it.
You're not there at 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
No.
And I don't expect that, but from a small business perspective, I go into a lot of small businesses, and when it's busy and you're doing a pop-up and you have 15 tickets that are already on and you're making pizzas and it's hot and you're under a tent, and then you've got a line out the door on a Saturday morning for baked goods, you just seem calm, and it seems fun to you. Is it still fun?
It is so fun.
Yeah.
It is so fun. The fact that we're sitting here right now is so fun. And the fact that we have a business that's operating right now, and like we did the hard work this morning, and we get to like take a step away, for a second, feels good. And I think it all really comes with like us and like our communication, like communicating and delegating our tasks to each other so we can take on the things that we need to and that we both really enjoy. Like the things that Zachary enjoys would be ordering flour and like going through all the produce lists from Grow Food Carolina and from Spade and Clover. And, I get to do things like social media and marketing. And, that to me like brings me joy, and event planning. And then we get to meet in the middle of the kitchen, which is like our happy place where we like jam. The first hour of the day that we do not talk. That is the number
No
one
questions.
goal. Yeah.
No questions.
Yeah. Just like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Big hugs, but our
It's
brains are
hard.
getting started. And,
That hour is 3:15 to 4:15.
Yes.
Just a heads up.
Yes. But it's great for our mental health. And
Yeah, but I just think
Calm.
about that because I really work on my stress level. And I'm a one person, I'm small too, one person thing. And I'm just, I want to say that I admire that for you. And a lot of couples don't like working together, but it seems that is part of your, to use the language, love language,
yeah,
is building stuff together, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I was, working at someone else's restaurant and Hannah was working at someone else's restaurant, we would never see each other, and that's, I think we'd rather spend 24 hours a day together than 20 hours a day apart. So we find out how to make it work.
We've been working in the same kitchen together for 8 years now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When you come up with a dessert or you come up with your variation, a lot of what you do are traditional things. So first, can you list a few of the baked goods that you do?
Totally. We're definitely known for our danishes. So that's a laminated dough filled with a bunch of really awesome butter. Our croissant dough is naturally leavened, so going along with this live, living, really happy natural yeast that's in there. I think that's what makes our pastries unique, especially to the Lowcountry. The danishes, we always have a sweet, we always have a savory, and those are always rotational with what's in season, literally by the week. Like one of our incredible regulars just dropped off 7 pounds of figs from her tree, which will probably be on a Danish tomorrow because I can't not.
I'm going to miss a Weltons fig Danish.
It is really tight in that way in terms of like the formula is there, but like the creativity is among not just us, but our whole team of excitement of what's in season.
So how do you know, do you like pass something on to him? Do you pass something on to her? How do you know when you've got it right? Because you also are producing a lot for a small business. And so you have to make those decisions fast. And I know a lot of small business owners listen to this podcast. How do you know, like, yeah, we're going to go with this?
A lot of it, I think, is trusting the dough. Like, I feel like we have our doughs pretty dialed in. So in terms of what's going to go in them or on top of them, it's, I wouldn't say spontaneous, but it definitely can be. Hannah comes to me in the morning and says, hey, I made this. Like, is it good? And 99.9% of the time, yes, it is. And
like
I think
90%. Nice. There's definitely some like, whoa, that ain't it.
But I think
that's okay.
I think that's where the advantage of us both having come from savory kitchens and just like working with flavor profiles and doing things that maybe we did this as a salad set, 6 years ago.
Right.
Like it's probably going to taste good on a pizza,
Yeah, like, hey, remember that goat cheese and cranberry and raspberry vinaigrette thing that we did back in the 90s?
Yeah.
I bet that would be good.
Yeah.
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 On a pizza.
Yeah.
Or in a Danish, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just pulling from the well,
You can tell I have worked in fine dining kitchens. No, just kidding. I actually have, but I'm not on the line. I made it one day on the line. Jacques Larson could tell you the story.
Oh my God.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
yeah. And he was finally like, nope, you've just got to make this one dish for the rest of the night.
I will say one thing too, like our employees are a huge part of like what works for our menu as well. Like our team members there's a lot of bouncing back and forth. There's a lot of eating of trial Danishes and flavor profiles, or that's too salty, or maybe it needs lemon, or, I saw that, one of our team members works at Spade and Clover, so she knows what's in the fields. And so she's like, hey, this would be kind of cool. Or, and she drops it off and gets to see it on the Danish the next day. It's pretty like romanticized in conversation too, which I think it's just communication, right? I think that might be it at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think romanticized, or that romance of what you're baking, is a really good way to explain your business, because in a world where you can dial in stuff, you can sous vide stuff, you are in a very precise industry where, especially the baking aspect of it, one little bit here, you've gone the opposite direction. This is going to be a chef's table episode one day, where they take you back to Tulum and they slow-mo you pulling a pizza out with banana leaves behind it or something, right? So you're like, yeah, you should direct that episode, Stephanie. That's another conversation. But that romanticism in the modern world seems to be lost. Do you feel like, or being less, do you feel like you're bringing that back too?
Yes.
I've never really thought about it like
We're
that.
just
but
very passionate people, but yeah.
I think we err on the side of rustic rather than refined. And I think that that has definitely been lost a little bit in terms of like,
I think the pandemic too. I hate to talk about it, but like it's obviously still a real living thing. And it got folks in the constant of like, I can order my groceries online. I don't have to talk to the person cooking my food. I can just have it delivered to my door. And I think it kind of created this like cushion between the person that's nourishing and feeding you and, the consumer. And I think that we're trying to like really tear that down a little bit. Or just, I like our regulars are incredible beings, and we love to know people's names and when their birthdays are, and they're on this crazy calendar on my phone, and all of those things are really important. And I sure hope that that's like a trend that's coming back, because those are the restaurants that we like to frequent and support all over the South. And
I definitely think there's a need for it, because even if you figure out you can get everything delivered, you still ache for that connection, right?
Totally.
It's a very human thing to want to know who's cooking for you.
Yeah.
So I've written a lot about that and said a lot about that. But for those people that are listening and they're home bakers and they keep sliding down that savory, sweet slope, and is there any advice that you can give people about jumping down the rabbit hole?
Love that. I definitely think finding some cookbooks that really rock with you and your vibe, even if it's starting with, your favorite savory cookbook. Like, let's take Hartwood's cookbook, for instance. You know, it has this beautiful series of everything from crudos to grilled fish. And then all of a sudden the end is like beautiful lime tarts and, you know, banana leaf custard. And I feel like that is kind of how I tiptoed into the baking world. That like rocked my brain in terms of, you know, I can complement my savory cooking with a dessert that would be in line. And that was like really early on. I also just think falling in love with fruit, like fruit is such a fun door to like baking. Things like cobblers and hand pies, and getting really familiar with like dough. And, you know, you can easily make a savory hand pie as well. It's, you know, you could make the same dough and make some like ground lamb and feta hand pies, or you could go the route of making blueberry hand pies. And I feel like that's tiptoes you in, you know? That's what I would say. And by a scale.
By a scale.
By a scale.
Yeah, it takes a lot of guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
What about for you?
I think Hannah was right with like finding a couple things that you can like ease into, learn how to do really well. And like that provides yourself enough encouragement to be like, oh, okay, like I can do this and my family loves it or my friends love it. So now I'm going to get weird and try something that like I might fail at a couple times, but once it comes out, you're like, shit, like I can do anything.
Yeah. It's fun. Yeah. If I could make pizza like that, I would be like, shit, I can do anything.
That's like one of my favorite things is like, I would say at least once or twice at like either it's a private event or a public pop-up, somebody comes up and they're like, you know, I got an uni at home and I don't know what's wrong, and we just stand there and try and troubleshoot what's going on with their little pizza oven at home. And they're like, oh, I never thought about that. Or like, yeah, that's just like,
well,
ask question.
I hate to mention it, but I got an uni in the car.
Yeah.
I really do.
I really want to use one because like every time somebody asks, I'm like, we only have this giant oven. Like, I don't know what an uni's like, but you know,
these are the principles of how it works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Uni sent me an oven for my tour. Yeah. So I'm going to be making local food pizzas. I know. I need to hit the dough. Anyway, this is not a podcast about me. I really want to know, you have really, I think, exploded onto the Charleston market and really made a name for yourself. You're very much already entrenched in the community. When you returned, it just seemed like a pocket and just slipped into that pocket, and we needed what you were making. That's pretty evident by the amount of response that you see and the sellouts that you routinely have. So I know you're very ambitious to try all of these things and open all of these places. So what is making you hungry? What are you interested in next?
See, now the question's clarified. I first like read that little note in the beginning, like, what's making me hungry? It's like, well, we struggle to find time to feed ourselves. So that's probably what's making me hungry. But I think like part of I always want to impress her. You know what I mean? Like I want to keep her inspired because she's like a large point of inspiration for me. Like when I see her crushing something, I'm like, shit, like that's awesome. I want to do, you know, better at my job, and I want to, you know, do things that inspire her.
That's so kind.
As far as like what's next business venture, we have too many ideas.
Wrangled in, I would like to be able to open up some kind of sustainable restaurant.
Yeah.
That provides what we all need. Things like a quality of life and sustainably sourced, and you know where your food's coming from, and not in like a cheesy way, but like truly understanding, you know.
A happy, well-paid staff who has a quality of life, and
that's building the airplane as you fly it, because that model is not really there yet. Where restaurants aren't really built like that.
No. Right. I mean, the bakery opened first with 2 days and then 3 days, and now it's at 4 days, and we've slowly, you know, grown our very baby business. And That's the only way. I think it's just baby steps until you figure out what's right and what's wrong, and it's okay to fail.
And then you go for it, because we like tiptoe around things, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we just signed a lease on a bakery, so we're gonna figure out how to do it.
I'm so happy you're in that specific spot. It's on Upper King Street, and it used to be 26 Divine, and that's just the cutest little building, and it makes complete sense. Okay, what is one aspect of each one of your personalities that fits like a puzzle piece with an aspect of the work that you do?
I feel like I was always a morning person, so being a morning person, it's like, okay, this is fine with me. And I think that now Hannah, I feel like, is more of a morning person than I am. So that was kind of an easy personality trait that I think fit right into what we're doing now.
Yeah. For me, it's definitely, I love people. I love nourishing through food, and I get to do that every day. So I get to talk to people, which is amazing. Even if it's in person, if it's email, like that's what, my nickname growing up was like Hug and Hannah. Like I just have always been like a compassionate person. Mm-hmm. But because my mom is a literal angel, and I feel lucky that I get to share that with our team and with everyone that walks into the bakery or comes to a sweaty pop-up outside. It's 100 degrees and I'm drenched in sweat. I still want to hug you. Like, yeah.
That's the Charleston way, where people go, I'm sweaty. And I'm like, oh yeah, we all are.
We all are.
Like we're sweaty.
Why are we even talking about it?
Yeah. This is who it is, Is there anything keeping you up at night?
Yeah.
I mean,
I want a pizza shop really bad. I think we both really want that.
Yeah. I mean, we're always, like you said, we're always thinking about what's next, and not necessarily keeping us up at night in a bad way, but just eagerly. Like to get home and shut your brain off is hard, even when you've been up since 3:30,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And figs. I mean, recently in the past week, I'm like, what are we going to do with figs? Because I haven't even wrapped my head around that. I think with the bakery too, it's like we've experienced every season now for the first time. So like fall, it was apples, winter, it was hard squashes, and spring, asparagus. And then summer, it's like, oh my God, like peaches, corn, figs. I can just go down this list of like, we just got our first round of tomatoes, like pretty mind blowing for a menu.
Right.
For the first time. So I think that has been...
Time moves quick. Mm-hmm. Like after starting the bakery, it's just, I can't believe that it's already, I mean, it's been a year since we've signed the lease. Time flies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so thrilled. This is a question I just reserved for Southern Fork guests. And I'm so honored that you said yes to being a guest today on the show. Being in food for years, a lot of people ask the question about what is your death row meal? And I used to ask that question too. And then I realized that I don't like that question because I don't believe in the death penalty and I don't believe in death row. And so I started kind of being weird about it. And then I realized I could just change the question to ask you about some foods that bring you life. So in this kind of scenario, I have a magic picnic basket. So with this picnic basket, I can time travel. I can go back and ask anybody to make one more bite of something that you just would love to taste again. I can source for you, definitely. I can cook a little bit, but don't ask me to make pizza dough. I'm pretty bad at it. I have tried. And I have a problem that ends in crying with the pie crust, but I can make you a pound cake any day of the week. I would love to put some favorite things in that basket. And since you build a life together and build businesses together and bake together, I would love for you to build a picnic basket together. So what are some things that we can put in that basket?
This could be a pretty large basket. First things that pop into my mind, we've always traveled to Italy. Like it's just like draws us in, and some of my favorite food memories are from there. So fresh local peaches with gorgonzola dulce was magical.
From Modena.
Yep.
With drenched in balsamic vinegar.
Yeah. That would be in there. What else? My head always goes to dessert because I have a very large sweet tooth. Hannah makes amazing ice cream. When we were living in Houston during the pandemic, we did some urban foraging for some mulberries along the bayou, and she made a peanut butter cookie mulberry ice cream that if I could have another pint of that, I'd be very happy.
Oh.
You know, you can forage for mulberries on Meeting Street.
Oh, cool.
I'll tell you where after we're done.
Oh my gosh. I would definitely say I would love to have the first pizza we ever made together. 2016, smaller than the bakery, so really small, 1-bedroom apartment. Yeah, I would love to taste that dough out of just curiosity. And I just remember us eating it and being like, this is the best thing I've ever had in my whole life. And like,
did we cook it outside?
Yeah, we cooked it outside.
Campfire?
Like savage. Like I don't even know how we cooked it.
What were the toppings?
I remember there was like fig jam. There was
prosciutto, arugula.
Country ham. It was Benton's country ham. It was just wild. And a bunch of caramelized onions. Those flavor profiles.
My brothers did say it was the best pizza they ever had, though.
Oh, well,
so
I don't know.
That's pretty good. Are there any beverages in there?
Beverages. If I could just put Bar Rollins in a picnic basket, I would. It's our best friend's wine bar that he's really introduced the world of like natural wine to us in a way that I just thought wine is wine, and it's really not that way. Yeah, if I could just put that whole business in the basket, I would.
I was going to say a bottle of mezcal, some cheap beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's room.
Cool. Great.
We want you to be happy,
I
too.
don't even need ice.
Well, the beer has to be a little cold, right?
Yeah.
To be authentic, just
barely.
Like body temperature, I think.
Well, if people want to know more about Welton's Fine Foods and Welton's Tiny Bakeshop, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. You can also visit in Charleston, South Carolina. But online, I'm going to have images so you can see the faces behind the voice. If you like what you hear, there are more than 320 episodes in the archives, and there are plenty covering this Charleston, my home, and also many, many more bakers across the South. It is a delicious job, and I'm always, always hungry for the next bite. So thank you so much for feeding me and inspiring me in this conversation. It was lovely.
Cool.
Thank you so much for having us. Wow.
Hello, and welcome to Talking with My Mouthful. I'm really taken by the idea after interviewing Hannah and Zachary that there is a rhythm to their lives. They are working in conjunction with nature and not against it. So they are working with a live, naturally leavened dough, a live sourdough starter. They're working with wood fire, which, you have to collaborate with, as past guest Tuffy Stone says, you have to work with the fire. They are also working with the seasons. And so this really provides a natural rhythm. And I've been thinking a lot about time. I am on this trip and using my time wisely and thinking about how our lives have rhythms and then breaking that rhythm on purpose, like I'm doing right now, and going on this road trip. It's developing its own rhythm. But there is this idea, it's really more of an old idea now, and it's the idea that cooking with naturally leavened dough or wood fire or seasonality is actually going to slow things down too much, and you're not going to be able to produce. And what I really see is that Hannah and Zachary produce a lot of things. They are always busy, and I think that rhythm is natural to their lives, so they're able to stay in the baking space, in the cooking space, stay in the kitchen together because it's a natural rhythm for them. So anyway, if you've ever cooked and baked with sourdough, you know that it has its own timetable and you just kind of have to work with it. And the same is true for wood. You have to start the wood and it has to burn down to coals. And that just takes as long as it takes. And it's a little bit different each time. So there's something really beautiful about that. And I think it shows up in their food. And you can taste that naturalness, but you can also taste that anchor of place. And that's why I'm really excited about the work they're doing. And I just wanted to bring that up. So have a great week. I will, be on the road, but be right here on the mic with you again soon.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations. But in the meantime, I have one question. Are you going to eat all that?